Welcome back, everyone, to a different kind of reaction video today. Been super excited about the Artemis II mission, as have my kids. And as I'm recording this, it's about an hour and a half from the scheduled launch for Artemis II. But we are actually about to hit the road to go to Gettysburg for the Gettysburg Film Festival. But I wanted to pre-record this to have it go up in a couple of days after hopefully the successful launch has happened, and just look into the mission that we're going to be hearing a lot about, if you haven't already, which is Apollo 8, which was the 1960s version of Artemis 2. It was a very similar mission in terms of the steps that are taken to go to the moon. So this is actually a video that was produced by NASA. It's Apollo 8 around the moon and back. It's from 7 years ago, and it's basically them telling the story of the December 1968 mission that Artemis II is being compared to. So I thought we'd watch it, talk a little bit about the history behind this. I know I've done an entire Apollo series, and I'll recommend that to you. We took a look at Epic History's fantastic look at the Apollo program, and I'll link that down in the description, but also on the end screen if you want to check that out for a lot more in-depth look at this. But let's go ahead and dive into this one.
Listen to the words of three men flying around the moon.
We are now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on
Earthrise.
Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you.
So, I mean, it's so hard for us to be wowed by something that happened so long ago now, but I often think about what it would have been like to watch this stuff unfold the way that it did when it did. Remember the context of 1968, right? U.S. is in the middle of the Vietnam War. This is the middle of the Cold War. 1968 saw the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., saw the assassination of Robert Kennedy. This was a presidential election year. This is just a month and a half or so after Richard Nixon has been elected president. I mean, there's so much going on. And if you've ever seen From the Earth to the Moon, which is a fantastic series that was done years ago by Tom Hanks and others, one of the things they show is a message that was sent to the Apollo 8 astronauts that said, "Thank you for saving 1968." It was such a hard year for a lot of people, for the world. And this brought some hope, some light. It was right at Christmas time. This was a big, big, big deal at the time.
Well, Apollo 8 originally was an Earth orbital mission exercising the lunar module. But the lunar module was way behind.
We had intelligence information that the Russians were going to put a man around the moon probably in December of 1968.
The people in NASA came up with the idea of moving Apollo 8 to a lunar orbital mission.
Why don't we send the command service module of Apollo 8 to orbit the moon, and we can learn a lot about the communication system, the navigation system, how the moon's gravity would affect the orbiting spacecraft, look for suitable landing spots.
So, just real quick background to all this. When NASA set out the plan to go to the moon by the end of the 1960s, which was very famously challenged, they were challenged by President Kennedy to do that, and it's incredible what the United States and what others have been able to accomplish when we set an ambitious goal and then throw our resources behind that. And that's what happened. And so very early on, they start kind of laying out, okay, what do we need to be able to do to get to that point where we can put a person on the moon and bring them back safely? And so they come up, with the Mercury missions, and then the Gemini missions, and then the Apollo missions. And every one of these missions had a specific mission goal that was going to take them one step closer to that landing. But as things happen, the goals get changed, the missions get changed. We just saw that happen with Artemis. Artemis II, which is supposed to be the next mission after this one, was supposed to be a moon landing, a crewed moon landing. But now Artemis IV is going to be the moon landing, and Artemis III is actually going to be a mission that just stays in Earth orbit. to test some things. So these changes do happen. And of course, Apollo 1, that very famous fire on the launch pad that took the lives of Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, obviously altered things. And what's happening with the Soviets, because remember, this is a space race, that is altering things. So the plans are constantly changing.
We had to condense into 4 months what usually took a year to 18 months of training. Everybody was motivated. Everybody was dedicated. And the basic idea was to beat the Russians to the moon. That was a political goal that was set by President Kennedy. And we
cannot forget that a major component of all this was political, which is one of the reasons why we haven't been back to the moon with people on the ground on the moon since 1972, because those political goals just weren't there anymore. There was no reason to continue it. There's a fascinating alternate history show that's out right now that looks at an alternate history where the Soviets get to the moon first and then the space race continues, and then you see things kind of happening much faster, like Mars landings and things like that, because that race continued. And so that competition sparked a continued focus and a continued investment in it.
all determined to beat it.
Apollo 8 developed a lot of attention. It filled a big square in preparation for later Apollo flights.
Well, I got into the big Saturn V. This would be the first time that man had actually launched on a Saturn V.
Right, because none of the other Apollo missions had involved this system, this is the first time that they're testing really the rocket and the system and pretty much everything that's going to happen to go to the moon. The only difference is they don't have that landing module yet. Apollo 10 is going to be the one that's going to take that landing module up, and they're going to actually go almost to the moon, the lunar surface. So all of this is being tested for the first time. If you've never seen one of these rockets, and the ones launching Artemis are bigger, this thing is massive. I got to see one down in Huntsville, Alabama. It stood underneath it. You can't really fathom how huge this rocket is.
So I thought to myself, after this 4 months of heavy training, I said, I'm actually going to go to the moon.
The engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, the Saturn V still is the most powerful machine ever made, and for 17 missions it flew perfectly.
We have cleared the tower.
We had orbited the Earth, first of all, to check our spacecraft out. Then, when everything was fine and the spacecraft looked fine to go to the moon, we lit the third stage for a second time.
Trajectory and
Yeah, so you have a translunar injection, right? So you're orbiting the moon, or orbiting the Earth, and then when you get to the right place, this is all math and trajectories and science, and it's incredible, the brain power and the computing power that we use to do this stuff. And remember, this is in 1968 when you didn't have the power, the electronic and computing power that you have today. You just had people's minds doing a lot of this stuff, and so they line it up, and then they just kind of fire their rockets and pull away from Earth's atmosphere, and they're on their way. And what's happening with Artemis II is, and I think it was similar to what they had with Apollo 8, which is a free free return trajectory, which basically means they don't really have to do anything. Just the energy that they put into flying to the moon is going to be what just slips them around the moon and shoots them right back toward Earth.
guidance or go, over.
It's
We could
fascinating
actually
stuff.
coast all the way
Yep.
to the moon.
And after a while, you could look back and see the Earth getting smaller and smaller.
That's the thing. They're not firing rockets the whole time, right? As soon as they shoot toward the moon, it's just like inertia. It's the energy you've already expended that is pushing you there. Amazing.
Very complete. Apollo 8, this is Houston. Roger. Good to hear your voice.
People on Earth tend to call the far side of the moon the dark side, but that's a misnomer. On our flight, the moon was between the Earth and the sun.
Right.
The far side was lit by the sun.
Right. So we only ever see the one side because how the Earth's orbit is tidally locked, and so we only ever get to see one side. But that's because when the far side of the moon is facing the Earth, it's when it's not facing the sun, and so it never reflects that side. But that means that when we don't see the moon, when it's a new moon and it's completely dark for us, that means the far side's completely lit up.
We saw the far side. We're like three school kids looking into a candy store window, I guess, just staring at the...
Incredible. The first humans to lay eyes on the far side of the moon lit up. I mean, that's a big deal. They're also the first humans to be away from Earth's orbit, right? To leave Earth's orbit. And at that point, they were the furthest humans had ever been from Earth.
Name craters
So
as
many
they
things.
slowly passed us by.
We were busy shooting pictures of the lunar surface for lunar landing sites for upcoming lunar landings. And then suddenly I looked out the window and here was this gorgeous orb coming up, and I thought,
Earthrise.
holy moly.
And there over the lunar landscape was the Earth.
One of the most famous photographs in human history. And, you know, these three guys are seeing Earth from a perspective that no one has ever seen it before. And I saw today that on Artemis II, there's actually it's basically like a kid designed this thing, and I think they called him Rise. And it's a little stuffed animal that they made to go up, and when he's floating, that's like their indicator that they're in weightlessness.
The Earth was beautiful. It was the only thing in the whole universe that had any color.
I had fought to have a long lens and color film. I didn't have a light meter, just banged off a dozen or so pictures, changing the f-stop each click.
I put my thumb up to the window of the spacecraft.
And this is Jim Lovell, who is played by Tom Hanks in Apollo 13, because he was supposed to walk on the moon in Apollo 13.
And I could completely hide the Earth behind my thumb. The Earth is a mere speck in the Milky Way galaxy. Look what we have here. Water and an atmosphere. We're orbiting a star just at the proper distance to absorb that star's energy. God has given mankind a stage upon which to perform.
And they very famously read from the book of Genesis, all three of them. And this was a choice that they made together, and they read from the book of Genesis, the creation story, and that was broadcast live back to Earth. And remember, this is at the time when you have Madalyn Murray O'Hair, who was the head of like the American Atheists, right? And she had very famously sued over multiple things, including, suing a school district over her son being forced to participate in like Bible readings and stuff at school. And so she was behind a lot of those kinds of things. Ironically, that son later became a Baptist minister, became a Christian and a Baptist minister. But she sued. And so later on then, when you have Apollo 11 land on the moon, Buzz Aldrin, who's still living, he's in his 90s, wanted to participate in communion while he was on the moon. But because of what happened with Apollo 8 and with that ongoing lawsuit, they decided to kind of make it very generic in what he said publicly. And so he broadcasts back to Earth and basically just says, I'd like to ask people in his or her own way to just take a moment and give thanks, however they see fit, for the incredible moment that we are experiencing with man on the moon. And so that was a direct result of the flack that Apollo 8 got from Madalyn Murray O'Hair over reading from Genesis. I do have to just kind of set aside my history hat for a minute here and just offer some private commentary. I saw a video from Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I think is just awesome, and he's done such a great job of making like complex science accessible to a lot of people because he's cool and he describes it in a great way and he's got great presence on camera, and I just think he's great. And he was asked about this, and he basically said if he could go back and talk to Madalyn Murray O'Hair, then he'd basically tell her, you know what, you're not the one strapped onto millions of pounds of thrust in a rocket 240,000 miles away from Earth. Let them say what they want to say. But anyway, let's get back to it.
How the plate turns out is up to us.
That's good
For all
stuff.
the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void.
Look at that. Oh,
And
goodness.
darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
All of you on the good earth. And again, context. Think about what's happening in 1968 on the world. What a horrible year that was. One of those years most people would want to forget. And this beautiful moment happens, and it paves the way. Apollo 9 is similar to to Artemis 3, where it's going to be like an Earth orbit thing. Apollo 10 goes one step further, and they actually do everything but the landing itself. They even take the lunar lander down close to the surface and then take it back up. I mean, they were like right there, right? And then that paves the way for Apollo 11 and Ohio's own Neil Armstrong from Wapakoneta, making that famous first step on the moon.
It's important for America to be at the forefront of space exploration. That drives technology. One of the important factors.
He made a great point there. He says it drives technology. How many times in history have we seen that technology has been, like civilian technology, has been born out of some military necessity or some scientific necessity? And so many things were developed specifically because they met a need of the Apollo program, that then they were able to be used in a civilian capacity later on.
So the Apollo program was the coordination and the organization of the American industry to achieve a great goal. Laying out a incredibly ambitious goal and then putting all of the might of ingenuity and intelligence and resources behind that goal. A world leader.
I miss that.
Not just on the Earth, but in space.
All right, that was great stuff. Like I said, if you want to see the real in-depth look at the Apollo program that I did when I took a look at Epic History's fantastic series on that, I will put the link down below, but also up on the screen right here. Thanks for watching.